Hello viewers, this is the final round of the Nations Cup, and it's quite a special one because it is on the oval, the Daytona Tri-Oval, which always makes for a very compelling race. There will be drama, there will be strategy, there will be crashes. Let's first off choose our car. It's got to be the Supra that's going to be the quickest. I would have thought, hopefully this is the right decision. Let's jump in. Okay, NSX is actually the quickest car, so Supra probably not going to be the right decision, but we'll do our best. That's all we can do. This is the qualifying session. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's kind of boring, just driving around in a circle or an oval. And, well, after 5 or so minutes, qualifying in 6th place, a Honda NSX was at the front, with the Aston Martin DBR9s mainly towards the back. But let's jump into this first race then, and try to get a feel for how it plays out. It might seem really simple on the surface, driving around the oval 30 times, but you know what, it's actually sometimes more of the complex races that you get on this game. And the initial thing I had to really worry about was, can I make it to the end on fuel? And judging by this, the answer was no. I only had enough fuel for about 20 laps. But the race was of course 30 laps, so I would have to pit at some point. So I still tried to do as much fuel saving as I realistically could, and the best way really would be to stay behind and to avoid crashes like that. That does always help, I find. So we've gained a position. If I can just stay in the group, that's always good. A couple of guys here, the guy serving a penalty, presumably for the contact with the other guy who crashed a moment ago. So this is lap 2, and already we're becoming quite split as a group. I'm losing touch with the group in front, but we managed to reel them back in with some nice duo work here with this driver behind. We kind of worked as a pair here to bump draft back to the leading group. We were 5 away at the front, so this was quite a good situation to be in. There's 5 of us here. We're away from the second group, so we're just minimising the amount of people that can compete. Now here, you see I'm looking down. I'm trying to change my tuning settings on my FANATEC wheel, and as I do that, all of a sudden we get a bit of a lag spike. And this is an issue that has been known to occur. I get rear damage. Basically, when you modify your tuning settings on your FANATEC wheel, as you come out of it, sometimes it creates a lag spike, and I completely forgot about that. And, well, it put me way off the pack. As you can see, I lost touch with the top 3. I got swallowed up by the pack behind, who managed to quite easily catch me up. And that's one of the things with this race. If you aren't with a group, if you're on your own, you're going to struggle. You just don't quite get the higher speeds with all the bump drafting and all the slipstreaming. And so you do need to be working together as part of a group. Now, 2 of the leading 3 cars went into the pit lane on the end of lap 15, so halfway into the race. Therefore, I jumped from 5th up to 3rd. And interestingly, this led the leader on his own. And this meant that, well, he had no help, no support. And quite quickly, as you can see, we managed to reel him in over the course of a couple of laps. So this is now lap number 19. So 2/3 into the race. I'm sat here in 3rd with only 12% of fuel remaining, enough for, it says, 2.5 laps. But I did notice that the fuel seemed to deplete slower as the fuel tank got drained, so I was able to actually go a little bit longer than that. So crossing the line, end of lap 20, still in 3rd. End of lap 22, I mean, it said please refuel. I've only got enough fuel for 0.5 laps, but quite stupidly I kept going. And as this point occurred, you see I completely ran out of fuel and had to coast into the pit lane at the end of lap 23. I was hoping some of those Aston Martins would come in, but none of them did. So there's me on my own in the Toyota Supra coming in. It clearly wasn't the right choice. We rejoined the circuit in a very lonely 9th position, and I was looking at that leading group hoping that they would all just come into the pit lane and give me a chance. But that sadly did not happen, so after 30 laps of racing I came home in a very lonely 9th position. Oh man, 9th place. And look at that. The Aston Martin was the car to choose. That was the car I should have been in. Monumentally messed that up. Clearly, the strategy is to save as much fuel as possible in the Aston Martin. This race kind of baits you in because you think it's a speed race, but really, it's actually a fuel-saving race. So I want to see what this guy does. This is the guy who wins the race. He started 9th, so it shows you don't have to be at the front. So quite interestingly, on lap 4, he was at the front of this sort of second group, and he didn't really make much intent to keep up with that leading group, so it shows that he's saving fuel like straight away. We can't see what fuel map he's on. So let's take lap 12. This is where I get caught by the group again, and he's on about 60% fuel. I'm on like 45. It definitely got really feisty, and here's how you get these overtakes, because you can see second, he kind of goes for a move here, just opens up the inside, and then the space opens up. So that's how you get those moves. You really do have to stick to the left. And then this is where he got the lead, because the leader's got like no fuel left, so he has to go into the pit lane. So yeah, it's playing the long game, stay in the race, save as much fuel, make sure you've got enough to go for it at the end. Let's see what the finish was like. I'm sure it was close. It's getting very feisty. Emu comes through right at the end there. There's 6 cars fighting for this win. And as they come up to the line, incredibly close, almost side by side. Let's see what happened here, because this is when I pressed the tuning menu button. I was pressing it about here. Let's look from the car behind, and it does this weird lag thing, which I completely forgot about. Shows that you shouldn't do it during the race. And then that was so strange. So he's got front body damage, I've got rear. That slowed us both down. But we know the strategy now. Aston Martin, save fuel, attack at the end. Let's go. Alright, race 2. Aston Martin, here we come. Okay guys, 7th on the grid. Not going to bother showing qualifying because it's kind of not important, but here we go, 7th this time around. And of course, this time around we are armed with the knowledge of how to successfully do this race, at least in terms of the car choice and the strategy. And immediately I realised why this car is better. As you can see in the top gear, so 6th gear, it revs incredibly low, and so it burns fuel at a much lower rate. So this race really got us baited into thinking it was a speed race, but really it's about fuel saving. Now you see up ahead, there was an Aston Martin in the leading group, and I was a bit nervous that he would begin to pull away. We had a McLaren at the front of our group here, which was losing us a lot of time to that leading group. We managed to kind of push him to the side here and get past. So the McLaren just getting out of the line, out of the sequence, and getting shuffled to the back of the pack. But worryingly, the leaders were just beginning to pull away and pull away. You see here, this was about a third of the way into the race. They were about 10 or more seconds in front. A worryingly big gap. 2 of them going into the pit lane, and that would therefore leave that Aston Martin out on its own. And we know what happens in that situation. When you're on your own, you don't have the extra speed. You are going to go a lot slower. I think you can get about 180, 175 miles an hour in the slipstream, but when you're on your own, you're only going about 169, 170. And over time, that does, of course, add up. This Hungarian driver was very aggressive, and he managed to find his way through. There was almost a monumental collision and crash with the Spaniard there. And it was quite interesting. The techniques you have to use to overtake was you really had to be aggressive and just force your way down the left-hand side. And that was the main dynamic of this race, just opening or trying to look for an opening on the left. But mainly everyone was driving on the left-hand side to protect the inside line. So it was a very interesting dynamic. Of course, very similar to NASCAR, perhaps a little bit different because you're driving more in one line rather than multiple lines. But as the race wore on, this is lap 26, still looking for that opening. We are okay for fuel, we can go to the end, that is not a worry. That guy got shuffled out of the line. A space opens up here, and I went into it, but the Spaniard was not happy at all. So he's turning left on a straight. I'm getting pushed beyond the yellow line, and as we head into the next corner, boom, all of a sudden I've been sent back in time. I've been reset, and you can see by my reaction that I was not very happy with that at all. And so I had a couple of very lonely laps. You can see here a replay of me getting sent back in time, and boom, that was that. The race was over for me. One consolation was I managed to gain 1 position, but it was only good enough for 12th after all of that. I can't believe that, guys. I can't believe that. Let's take a look at this incident again, because the space opened up and I just went into it there. It's so close as to whether or not that's like legal or not, but then obviously he's not happy, so turning left on a straight and sends me back in time. Don't you just love that? Like at this point here, I mean, as long as I keep two wheels within the line or on the line, then I'm okay. And I've just got a bit of an overlap, but not a complete one. It's close. Now, then I tried to force my way in, and he was not having any of it. It is what it is. We've got one more chance, though, to try to get this right. Okay, race number 3, our final chance. Now, qualifying was really weird, because I got up the inside of this Honda NSX. The NSX is the quickest qualifying car, but it's not good in the race because it can't save fuel. We did this entire session side by side. Nothing really much more to say about the qualifying session than that. It was quite weird. Qualified in 5th. Let's begin. This is the 3rd of the 3 races available, and so I had to get it right on this one. The first race was really a case of learning what to do. Second one was my first attempt at really getting it right, and then this one, last chance saloon. We've got to get it right now, or that is that. Okay, starting 5th. Honda NSX at the front of the pack, and of course by now, the 3rd race, most people were aware of what to do. Most people were in the DBR9, the Aston Martin, only the guy in the lead really in the Honda NSX. And so I'd say that it was becoming harder and harder. Also, check this out. The leader in the NSX, he really threw a curveball into this entire situation by driving on the right hand side. I know that sounds so simple and really doesn't sound very major at all, but typically this race would go as follows. Everyone drives on the left for 30 laps and that's that. But here, this guy started driving on the right, and it kind of meant that people were shuffling over to the right hand side. It created 2 lines instead of 1, and so the dynamic of this race was immediately very different than the first 2. And so as you can see here on the back straight on lap number 2, we have a right hand lane forming up against the left hand lane, and so we've got this interesting dynamic. We have the Honda NSX there as well. Actually there's 2 of them in the race. I guess slowed down there, that was a bit weird. I don't know what happened. And so now the situation is a bit perilous, and you know, bearing in mind that I didn't really finish the first 2 races properly, I really just want to get to the end and survive. And so this situation was kind of scaring me, with the close proximity of so many cars in 2 different lines. It's very easy for one little thing to go wrong and for you to end up in the shadow realm, aka the wall. So let's see what occurs here. Onto the back straight. Now I was hoping, which is what usually happens, the longest line will win out. Now of course we can go back to those races around Special Stage Route X, which kind of go along the same sort of routes where you have 2 lines. The longest line will just begin to push each other forward, and that line will win out. But here it's a bit of a mess, and the right hand lane looks actually a bit wider. There's a car getting scraped into the wall, losing a lot of momentum. Currently in 11th position, so we've lost quite a few positions from where we started. It's becoming a bit fractured here, and this is in danger of becoming a bit of a mess. So I'm just going to stick to the left hand side, keep it nice and safe, nice and easy, and rely on the things I know, which is just staying in the line and just playing it nice and safe, at least for the time being. We can be a bit more aggressive later on. And by lap 4, as you can see, the right hand lane became a bit fractured and the left hand lane became a bit stronger and longer. The Honda NSX in the lead, just, I mean, causing absolute anarchy. I don't know if it was intentional or what. He didn't really have a hope of winning this race because that Honda just can't do a no-stop strategy. So he just really thought he'd just throw a curveball into the mixer. So this is lap number 6, and at a very close call there with the Spaniard, who left a bit of a space. I went for it, then he come back, and you know, he could have easily have spun out there, and that often does lead to that kind of collision where you get spun around. And unfortunately here the Honda NSX does get spun around. There's a bit of carnage, get pushed from behind, and I carry the momentum through into 4th. and I have front and rear bumper damage. Now, luckily enough, that does repair itself after about 20 or so seconds, so I just need to stay in the line and then I should be okay. We've got a couple of cars going around the outside, and this is a strategy that I'd never really seen before in this kind of race. Cars were able, if they got the momentum and timing dead right, they were able to fly around the outside and make some overtakes. Usually that would result in you just getting cut adrift and you're on the outside of the lane and you lose loads of positions. Kind of like this Frenchman is here, where as soon as you're on the right hand side, you can't get back in the line and then you get shuffled down the deck. But here in 5th, lap 13, receiving a couple of pushes. Now here we have a Portuguese driver on the left hand side. Unfortunately, well, take a look. Here you can see he's definitely there. He's absolutely on my left hand side. And he tries to come back on, still there. But then the next frame disappeared, sent back in time. And unfortunately he met the same fate that I had in the previous race. He's been sent back to 2008 or something. I don't know where he went. He's gone. He's to be forgotten now. RIP in peace, my friend. This is lap number 16. Race still going very strong as the sun sets here at Daytona. Again, a couple of cars going around the outside. I'm playing it a bit safe here, just keeping in line, just making sure I survive and I'm not the one to fall foul of a collision or something. Womble here has a slow moment. I try to go around the outside, but before I can slot back in, he gets a bit of a boost, but there's a car up in front going off the track to the left, comes back on, causes a bit of carnage, and I'm going to gain 2 positions. The Greek driver in front on the receiving end of a 3-second penalty. I tried to turn right there, perhaps shouldn't have done, as there was a Spaniard there. So the Greek driver losing a handful of positions and is pretty much out of the race. And this is what I mean by playing it safe. You just got to make sure that you're not the one to fall foul of that kind of thing. Now here, this is lap 27, 3 to go. As we cross the line at the end of lap 28, start of lap 29, this is the 2-lap showdown at the end of the race. We've even got the Honda NSX a lap down for good measure. Why not? I mean, why the hell not? Just add him in the mixer. He can't affect the race result, but he is a visual distraction, I suppose. So I went down to 8th on lap 27, back to 6th place now, but I only have 1.5 laps to try to do something about not finishing 6th, which is not where I want to be. But here we are, 0.6 seconds away from the race lead, but with quite a lot of work to do in order to try and gain these positions. So coming up to the finish line of lap 29, 1 lap remaining. I'm still in the race. I'm happy about it. I've not been sent back in time. In fact, we've got 2 Honda NSXs here for good measure. We're going to go past both of them. Can we get a position here? I'm going to try the outside. There's no one in front of me. In fact, the Hungarian driver is going to give me a bit of slipstream. It's not enough though. As now the Italian goes to the outside, but I can switch back on him and nip underneath and get this position from him and take 5th. That's 1 position. Can we get another 4 with half a lap left to go? This is going to be very, very difficult indeed. Coming around the last corner, adjusting to the outside. Hopefully someone moves across and gives me some slipstream. It's not quite happening for me. 0.4 away from the race lead. We are not going to run out of fuel, but running up to the line is going to be incredibly close. 0.2 away from the race win. And it's a 4th. P4. I just wasn't aggressive enough, I don't think. But at least I finished. Really weird tactical race, that. Really, really weird. Okay, because that was the last race of the championship. We've got our ratings. And that is that. No more championships available. But thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.